The fairy lights strung over the dance floor glowed like 1,000 tiny stars, completely unaware that my entire family was about to detonate. For 8 hours, my wedding reception had been storybook perfect. Until 9:32 p.m. That was the exact moment I saw a man in a slate gray suit cut through the crowd toward my older brother, Ryan, who was posted up beside the champagne tower like he owned the hotel. My husband, Michael, followed my line of sight, and his fingers tightened around mine. "Is that?" he murmured. I nodded. My bouquet trembled just enough that a few petals drifted loose. Special Agent Keller had impeccable instincts for timing. He waited until Ryan finished his 6th glass of top-shelf scotch, the kind he'd suddenly been ordering like water after years of figuring things out, before he stepped up beside him, hand extended and smile carefully polite. "Nice reception, Mr. Zhao, and congratulations on the new house. $320,000 in cash for a down payment. Must have been quite a year." The music from the DJ faded into a kind of distant white noise. On the dance floor, my sister, Iris, stopped mid-twirl. Her boyfriend's hands dropped from her waist as she stared. Across the room, my parents turned in perfect unison, like synchronized swimmers who'd just noticed a fin in the water. My father's champagne glass slipped from his fingers. The crystal exploded against the marble floor with a crack that made half the room jump. "What cash?" he asked. His voice barely rose above the bass still pulsing from the speakers. I didn't move. My bouquet was still angled exactly how the photographer had arranged it 20 minutes earlier, my bridal smile frozen in place. Agent Keller's expression stayed pleasant, but his eyes sharpened. "The funds from Hui Zhao's estate," he said smoothly, "roughly $320,000. Our investigation shows that amount was transferred to your son's account 3 weeks after her death. Curious timing." My grandmother. My Nai-Nai. The woman who'd walked me to kindergarten every day for 5 years, who'd taught me to count dumplings in Mandarin while my parents worked double shifts at the restaurant, who'd held my hand through my first heartbreak, and whose hand I'd held hers as she slipped away. I organized her funeral alone. Ryan was between things, again. His face, which had been flushed from alcohol and congratulations, went corpse gray. "That money was a gift," he stammered. "She wanted me to have it. You must have gotten something wrong." Agent Keller took a folded document from the inner pocket of his suit jacket. "Funny thing about gifts," he said lightly, "they usually don't come with forged signatures on estate distribution forms, or wire transfers pushed through with backdated authorizations." He tilted the page, glancing between my parents. "Or notarized documents claiming the entire family agreed to the arrangement, when some family members were never even informed." My mother made a small, strangled sound. My father went very still, like a man slowly realizing the stove he'd been leaning over was on fire. I had known about the missing money for 5 months, 1 week, and 1 day. I discovered it at 1:54 a.m. on a Wednesday in January, when insomnia drove me to open my laptop and finally actually read, the complete estate packet from Nai-Nai's attorney. I was the executor, not because I was the golden child, though I was supposed to be the reliable one, but because I was the only one she trusted to read more than the first page of anything. The spreadsheet I built that night took me until sunrise. By 6:40 a.m., I'd tallied $320,000 in transactions that didn't match any distribution schedule. By 6:90 a.m., I'd located Ryan's name on forms I had never seen before, co-signed by my father. By 7:10 a.m., I had an email draft open to Special Agent Keller, whose card I'd kept from 3 years earlier when I'd helped his team unwind a mess of irregularities in a federal health grant. My day job, pushing papers according to my family, is as a compliance analyst for the Department of Health and Human Services. The federal government calls it something less dismissive, principal oversight officer for several Western regional grant programs. I follow the money, I find the lies, and I keep everything. "Lena?" My mother's voice yanked me back to the present. It was higher than usual, pitched with panic. She crossed the dance floor in heels that suddenly sounded like hammers, reached for my arm with talon-like fingers. "Tell them there's been a mistake," she begged. "You handled your grandmother's estate. Tell them you brother didn't do anything wrong." "Mom," I kept my tone low enough that she had to lean in to hear me. "I managed the distributions. I never approved $320,000 into Ryan's account." She watched her face change as the words sank in. "Did you?" Her hand dropped from my arm. Behind her, my father appeared, his cheeks blotched red and white like raw marble. "David," my mother begged, "tell her you knew it was a gift." Back to the issue. "Did you know about the $320,000? He flinched. The nightlights flashed red and white, as in sirens and distress, not a honeymoon. "Why would you invest all that money in family? The family you just caught frauding a grandmother?" I stepped back from my mother's reach. "You forgot what I do for a living, Mom. I follow the money. I literally follow the money. I never forget reading something that could affect my family." They looked at me like a stranger speaking in tongues. I turned to Michael, my face now polished calm. "I've been waiting for this moment for 5 months, Dave. I knew they'd spin it on family. That's why I chose this exact time and place." Michael's grip tightened as I turned my bridal smile toward the audience. "My family has something they'd like to share with you. They'd like to explain their complicated financial arrangements involving anonymous donations." I turned to Agent Keller. "Was there anything particularly interesting in the other forms?" Agent Keller looked at his file. "Yes, there were documents related to a third-party investor. His name is David Tanner." My sister exhaled loudly. The cameras whirred as the photographers tried to capture the chaos. "The guy?" he asked. "The guy I saw leaving your restaurant with a briefcase at 3 a.m. last month. He seemed pretty involved." They stared at David, his face now ashen gray. "David," I asked, "do you want to explain your involvement in the ghost ledger?" He shook his head. "There's serious jail time for this," Agent Keller said, "but I'm sure you'll fully cooperate. I've seen your files. You're the best I've seen." My mother burst into tears. While I turned to Michael, the whole hardened room watching. "I'll have a different name soon. Now let's dance." "We are your parents," he managed. "You do not call the FBI on your parents and your own brother over paperwork." "This isn't paperwork, sir." Agent Keller's tone lost all trace of social nicety. "Under 26 U.S.C. Section 7206, filing false tax documents is a felony. 18 U.S.C. Section 1343 covers wire fraud, and California Penal Code 470 addresses forgery." He turned slightly, including my father and Ryan in his gaze. "Mr. Zhao, you notarized documents stating that Lena had consented to this distribution. Our records and her logs show she hadn't even seen them." "I was going to pay it back." Ryan's voice cracked. "Lena, I swear, it was temporary. I just needed a boost. The market." "You bought a house," I cut in. "You bought a $650,000 house using our grandmother's money as the down payment." My throat tightened, but I kept going. "You posted photos online with the caption, 'Grind mode pays off.' You invited the entire family over for a housewarming where Dad gave a speech about your work ethic. You didn't borrow anything. You stole." "It was an investment," he insisted weakly. "Real estate "The market doesn't care that you submitted forged authorizations," Agent Keller interrupted, patience evaporating. "Mr. Zhao, we need to speak with you regarding your role in the transfers and forgery. Mr. and Mrs. Zhao, you'll also need to accompany us to answer questions about the notarizations and your knowledge of the distributions." My mother's face crumpled. 6 months earlier, it would have shattered me. "You're sending your father to prison on your wedding. What kind of daughter does this?" The kind who worked double shifts in college while her brother found himself on your dime, I said. The kind who listened to you tell every relative that my job was just stamping forms while I was coordinating fraud audits for federal health programs. The kind who finally understands that keeping quiet only ever protected the wrong people. Michael glanced at Agent Keller. For what it's worth, Lena oversees compliance for more than $50 million in health research funding every year. She's stopped 8 fraud schemes in the last 2, received a commendation from the Inspector General's office. Her family still thinks she's a receptionist. My father blinked. "You're not some clerk?" Iris whispered. "I have a master's in forensic accounting. I monitor complex grant flows for the Western region. I testified before Congress last spring about preventing misuse of federal health dollars." I shrugged, a small, bitter gesture. "You didn't come. It was the same day as Ryan's sentencing hearing for his DUI. You said you couldn't be in 2 places at once and court comes first." Agent Keller's phone vibrated. He checked it, then looked at my father. "Mr. Zhao, I'm being informed that agents executing a search warrant at your residence have located files related to a small business loan in 2019. Documents suggest potential misrepresentation there as well. We'll need to discuss that." My father's knees buckled. My mother grabbed his arm, sobs turning operatic as she pitched her performance to the room. "Lena," his voice had shrunk, every ounce of command gone. "We can fix this. Families fix things. Just tell them it was a misunderstanding, that you were confused, that we'd already talked about it." "It's not a misunderstanding." My own voice surprised me with how steady it was. "It's theft. It's fraud. It's 13 years of you deciding Ryan's comfort was worth my sanity." I straightened my shoulders. "And it ends tonight." Ryan lurched toward me, rage and alcohol mixing dangerously. "You vindictive—" Agent Keller stepped smoothly between us. "Mr. Zhao, I strongly suggest you stop speaking. Threatening a federal witness at her own wedding is a terrible strategic choice." Witness. My mother latched onto the word like a drowning woman seizing wreckage. "You're testifying against your own brother? Against blood? He's family. He's your gege." "He's a grown man who stole from his dying grandmother and forged my name to do it, and who used me like a walking ATM for over a decade." I took a breath. "Yes, Mom, I'm testifying." 2 agents I'd noticed earlier, standing discreetly near the entrance, began moving through the guests now, calm, professional, apologizing quietly as they stepped around chairs and centerpieces. One of them, a woman about my age, passed me and gave the smallest nod, a private acknowledgement. "Ms. Kang's documentation is exceptional," Keller continued, his voice projecting just enough. "Spreadsheets matching over a decade of transactions, voice recordings time-stamped and transcribed, text messages preserved and organized. It's the kind of work that makes federal prosecutions straightforward." Nine-Eye's voice echoed in my head from years ago at her kitchen table over a pile of crumpled receipts. 什么都要记下来, Shalina. Write everything down. Paper remembers what people forget on purpose. "Mr. and Mrs. Zhao," Keller gestured toward the doors, "you're not under arrest at this moment, but you're being asked to come to the field office for formal interviews. I strongly recommend you contact separate counsel." Ryan was crying now. Ugly, snotty sobs that would have melted my resolve when I was 19. "Lena, please," he hiccuped. "I'll lose the house, my credit, everything. I'll have nothing." "You'll lose everything you stole. That's not the same thing." Last month at 3:26 a.m., I read a text chain between him and my father. Ryan had typed, "Lena's too obedient. She'll yell and then calm down. She always does." My father had replied, "We raised her right. She won't embarrass us." They were wrong. My mother tried one last angle, her voice dropping into the martyr register that had served her so well at church and family gatherings. "When your grandmother looks down and sees you destroying her family, what will she think?" "When Nine-Eye looks down," I said, each word measured, "she sees me protecting what she built, not letting you launder her memory through your greed. She sees me finally choosing myself." Agent Keller inclined his head, a quiet signal. The agents flanked my parents, then Ryan, gently but firmly escorting them towards the double doors. The guests parted around them in shocked silence. A few phones were definitely recording. Aunt May was crying. Uncle Henry looked like he wanted to fight someone and wasn't sure who. My cousin Joel had his hand over his mouth, eyes huge. Michael's arm came around my shoulders, pulling me close as the people who'd raised me were led out past the dessert table. "Are you okay?" he murmured into my hair. "Ask me in 6 months," I said. 6 months later, I sat in the backyard of our small house, sunlight warming my shoulders, drinking coffee that no longer tasted like stale courthouse air. The justice system moved faster than I expected, and more thoroughly. Ryan took a plea deal, guilty to wire fraud and forgery, 20 months in federal prison, a $320,000 restitution order, 10 years of supervised release. My father received probation and community service for his role in the false notarizations. My mother avoided charges barely by cooperating fully. Her testimony against them did more damage to their marriage than anything I had ever said. The house Ryan bought with Nai's money was seized and sold. The proceeds sat in a restricted account, earmarked for restitution. My attorney estimated I'd see maybe 60% of what was stolen. Oddly, I didn't care about the exact number anymore. My phone buzzed. A text from Iris. "Mom wants to know if you'll come to Sunday dinner. She's different. Therapy is helping. She really wants to apologize face to face." I stared at the screen for a long moment, feeling nothing sharp, just a tired clarity. I typed back, "I'm glad she's getting help. I'm not ready for dinner. Maybe coffee in a year if she sticks with it." I hit send. Michael stepped outside, dropping on the bench beside me. He handed me an envelope from the estate lawyer. "Final distribution?" he said. "From the restitution account." Inside was a check for $41,000, my graduation school fund, clawed back dollar by dollar from Ryan's assets. There was also a short handwritten note on heavy paper. "Lena, your grandmother always said you had a spine of steel wrapped in silk. She would be proud of how you honored her wishes. Attorney Jan." I folded the note carefully and slid it into my wallet behind an old photo of Nai in her garden, hands in the soil, laughing at something I'd said. In the home office behind me, my original spreadsheet still sat in a folder on my desktop. I'd renamed it from ghostledger.xlsx to reminder.xlsx. I'd thought briefly about deleting it after the sentencing. I didn't. It wasn't a list of grudges. It was a map of how I'd gotten here. Michael's phone chimed. He glanced at it and handed it. "Message from Keller," he said, handing it over. The text read, "Testified on the Hill today about elder financial abuse. Used your case as a key example. Your documentation made a real difference. New safeguards in the works. Thought you'd want to know. K." I set the phone down and looked around at the yard, at the little house we'd bought with my salary, my savings, my signature. My life built on my decisions. No secret loans, no forged forms, no stolen money. Just me. And receipts. Nai had been right. Write everything down. Paper remembers what people insist they never said, never did, never took. And if you have the courage to use it, so do the feds.